Hi, so I don't know exactly who is going to be listening to this. So, just as a means of introduction, I'm Cassie and I'm finishing up my second year at Clarkson. So, I was asked to give a testimony at a large group like 2 Fridays ago, and all I kind of got was it's about doubt. So, I said yes because I knew that I definitely had something to talk about, like that would be relevant. But I didn't really know what. So I was kind of praying about it, and nothing was really coming to mind that I felt like worked and made any sense to me when I tried to explain it to myself until I was walking to class the morning, Thursday morning, the morning before the night of Friday. And God just reminded me of how much He's worked through my doubt of Him and myself a lot just this semester. So I thought, well, that's relevant and probably a good thing to talk about. So I spent my class not paying attention, but typing what you're about to hear into the notepad on my phone. Just coming into the semester, I had a lot of doubts as to whether I was going to be able to do everything that I had signed myself up for. Because last semester, I only took 15 credits. I was a small group leader, but that wasn't a lot of things, super manageable. And I did that because my spring semester of last year, I got really overwhelmed. It was not a great time for me. I was on the softball team, and it got to the point where I couldn't really go through a week without having a breakdown of some sort. And I just couldn't even approach any task, like small or large, without feeling so stressed and anxious about it, even if it was so minimal. And I could just tell myself, like, don't worry about it. Everything got me so worked up. And so I knew that something had to give because I probably just couldn't go through another 3 years of that. And I came here to go to school. So softball ended up being that something. So I ended up with a pretty light fall semester. Um, and it went okay. But I was a little discouraged still because about a month into the semester, I got to the point where it was on and off, maybe for a couple weeks at a time, but I was clenching my jaw so tight in my sleep and in the hallways and just subconsciously whenever I wasn't doing anything that it became really painful and like hard for me to eat. And I just couldn't open my mouth large enough without a lot of pain to like eat. And it also was really painful to smile and laugh. So it just became really frustrating and it wasn't encouraging because after like a long day or a long week, you just want to go eat some good-ish food, and I couldn't like enjoy that. It was just painful, and I couldn't just hang out with friends and just smile and laugh. I had to like just not show emotion because it was so painful to smile, and I would laugh and then wince. So I was really discouraged just by that semester. How I thought like I did what I was supposed to. Like I cut down a little bit, um, just to try and have more time and be more relaxed, and it didn't work. I wasn't strong enough emotionally or mentally or physically to do softball and all the things I needed to do in the spring, and I wasn't even strong enough to cut down and do what I thought was a bare minimum. So when I was coming to the semester and I told myself that I could take 19 credits or 7 classes and I could continue leading that small group that I started in the fall that really did not go that well, and I could join the leadership team for IV, and eventually during the semester I could join the volleyball club and I could start an intramural volleyball team and captain that, and then just all the other things you pick up during the semester, like little responsibilities that you have. Um, I was like, yeah, no problem, right? No. um, I had a lot of doubts as to whether I could do all that. But the obvious answer would probably be just don't take that many classes. Or maybe don't lead the small group this semester. Or don't join the leadership team. Just try and figure things out first. But as most of us do, I have an academic plan, like what classes I want to take, the minors and majors that I'm going to get. And in order to fit all that, I had to take certain prereqs and whatnot this semester. So it just worked out that I had to take 7 classes in order to do it in my planned way. And I, was like, I think God's on board with this plan that I have. I didn't make it completely without him, so it should be okay. And when I prayed about leading a small group again, I was just so encouraged to just push through like really low attendance and not a great experience the first semester. Like I felt like God was just telling me that he was going to work through me in a small group. And that was going to be a way that I can serve him and a way that I can reach other people and just work for his kingdom. And I couldn't say no to that. So I was like, sure. And then when I was praying about whether or not to accept Glenn's offer to join the leadership team, I just always got really excited. Even if I went into it praying like, nah, I definitely can't, but I'll just pray about it and make sure God agrees. I would pray and just get like so excited, and God was giving me all these like, but what about the impact you could have? What about giving back to this club that's giving you so much? And I was just thinking like, we could do some cool things for God on our campuses. And that was just so exciting. And I was like, this feels from God, this excitement. So I was like, sure, we'll do that. That was all great, but I haven't cut down on anything. So I was pretty doubtful. But like I said, I kind of trusted that these things that I was doing were things that God wanted me to do. And so I went on with it, and I guess I kind of showed a face of, I can do it because God thinks I can or something. But I really had a lot of doubts. I kind of just assumed I was going to have to drop a class and change my plans, and I might have to just not lead the small group the way I imagine to be doing it, or maybe I'll have to quit the leadership team. I just kind of assumed one of those things would happen. But I remembered a testimony from somebody else in the chapter, Victor, and he had talked about his last year in Nigeria and how it was his hardest academic year yet, but he decided to give the most time and effort and just the most of himself to God that year. And then he said it was his best year yet. It was his hardest, but his best. So with that testimony in mind, it encouraged me to just try to not doubt God. I was like, well, I can't just straight up not, when in my head I know he's capable of these things, but in my heart, as I looking back, I wasn't quite there yet. So I still didn't think it was going to work out, but fake it till you make it, right? So this semester ended up being really hard, and I wasn't wrong, and there was times where I was like kind of overwhelmed, but it was one of my best yet and the most encouraging yet, because those times when I got so overwhelmed, somehow I just like got to the next day and I was like, how did all that happen? I wasn't even that stressed, like I was for a little bit, but then it wasn't that bad. And I've grown the most this semester alone, like I think personally in my walk with God, in my faith. And maybe other people would see it differently that have known me before, that I've grown more in other times, but for me personally, being able to see growth in myself and just feel that difference, and this was the best period of time for me yet in that. And I struggle a bit with, I think a lot of people do, what I'm supposed to be towards and for other people, especially as a godly woman, like how I'm supposed to be acting and the attitudes and perspectives that I'm supposed to have. But that's been a lot of out of fear of not being those things. So this semester was a bit of change of perspective in that I wasn't quite as afraid of not being able to be those things. I was more focused on like trusting that God would provide for me, whether it was time-wise or emotionally or patience-wise. Like he would just help me to have that attitude. And I've seen, without really focusing on it or like thinking about it, looking back though, I've seen a huge like shift in my perspective and my attitude towards that woman of God that I want to be. And it makes me feel that this is just the beginning of a answer to a lot of prayers of just becoming that woman that I want to be. And practically, like logically and tangibly, what I've done this semester, I mean, I've just tried to do my devotional consistently, or more consistently. And that doesn't always go the best because I was coming off of, a couple semesters of pretty much just not spending a lot of time in God's Word. And I just tried to pray consistently, which was also iffy. But the one thing that I tried to do that helped a lot was making prayer my first resort. I noticed that, I don't know when maybe the change happened, but when something would come up that seems overwhelming or seems like a bad situation, sometimes, maybe like 60 to 75% of the time, I would think, well, I'm going to pray about it. And it allowed me to not worry about it in that moment. I knew that I would have to approach it, but like thinking, well, I'm just going to pray about it. And then after you pray about it, after you basically give it to God, then I can, how do I approach it? How do I attack it? What does he want me to do? In a calm, not completely anxious and stressed out of my mind way, which is a better way to address a lot of things. So that was like a biggest change for me, is just being able to have that perspective. God's definitely just opened my heart to be able to do that, which I'm super thankful for. And that was really helpful. The other thing is just, there was a lot of times where I think a lot of us, we get really motivated, like you want to go home from that church service that was like super inspiring, or that large group that somebody gave a really awesome testimony, or you just like reading something or a Bible study, and you want to go back from that and you want to wake up the next day and just be all those things, and you want to be great at praying all the time and doing a devotional and spending time in God's Word and going to Bible study and being like that friend that you want to be. But for most of us, it just doesn't happen that way. And we have to put in a lot of effort to come back when we veer off the path, because it's going to happen. But if you keep, what I'm learning is if you just keep trying to come back, if you just have that reminder to just forget like what had happened maybe last week, and just say, well, this week I'm going to do 4 days of a devotional. Last week I only made it to 3, but this week I'm going to try to do a little more. If you set up reminders for yourself, if you have accountability, if you surround yourself with more people that you want to be like, and especially if you surround yourself with God, because we want to be like him, you'll be able to look back, if you just keep trying and coming back, and think, wow, like I'm so much better at this. I'm just in a better place than I was like at the beginning of the semester. And for me, this testimony, like writing this, was that for me. Being able to look back and be like, did I actually make progress? And then maybe like a little check and being like, did God actually make progress in me? Is another whole set of motivation in and of itself. So I just I don't know how to end this, but I didn't believe that God was going to be able to somehow work things out, that I was going to be able to thrive this semester. To me, everything was so tangible. Like I needed time. I needed like focus. I needed like less work to do. And God can't control those things in my head. But if you trust your life and how you approach your life to God and what you're doing with your time, he'll make it work. And I can't explain to you how, but he does. And that's just my testimony as to what God has been doing in the last semester of my life, and I hope that it continues. So thanks for listening, and I hope that it was helpful to you.